A horse out of control, a child invisible to his father's eyes, and a hidden plan about to blow up. But nothing could foresee what would happen when they finally faced each other. The morning mist slowly dissipated over the mountains of Pine Ridge Valley, like a veil being delicately removed by the first golden touch of the sun. Ellen Mitchell Davis walked across the ranch porch with measured steps, each movement carrying the weight of 67 years well lived and some battles yet to win. Her grey eyes, sharp as blades, surveyed the property she knew inch by inch, every tree, every fence, every stone on the path that led to the main gate. "Sarah," she called, unhurried but with the authority of someone accustomed to being obeyed. Her voice echoed through the ranch house, mixing with the distant sound of birds and the soft neighing of Rusty, who grazed in the nearby field. The housekeeper appeared at the kitchen door, drying her hands on the embroidered apron she had worn for more than a decade. Sarah was a middle-aged woman, grey hair always pulled back in an impeccable bun, with a loyalty to the Davis family that transcended any work contract. "Yes, Mrs. Davis, the coffee is brewing, and the bread just came out of the oven." "Thank you, dear." Ellen smiled slightly, a smile she rarely showed, but reserved for people who truly mattered. "Do you know what day it is today?" Sarah paused, reflecting. "July 15th. It's exactly 2 years since Mr. Arthur left us." The silence that followed was respectful, filled with memories that still hurt like poorly healed wounds. Arthur had been more than a husband to Ellen. He was her partner, confidant, and the strength that kept her balanced between the toughness needed to manage the ranch and the tenderness she saved for intimate moments. 2 years, murmured Ellen, adjusting the shawl over her shoulders. "Sometimes it feels like an eternity, sometimes like it was yesterday." Rusty approached the fence separating the pasture from the house, as if he could sense the melancholy hanging in the air. The reddish-brown horse, with his natural imposing presence and almost human gaze, had a special connection with the family. Arthur used to say that Rusty wasn't just a horse, but a silent guardian of the property. "He still misses the boss," observed Sarah, waving affectionately to the animal. "Every morning he looks toward the office as if expecting to see Mr. Arthur come out with those papers under his arm." Ellen nodded, walking to the fence to stroke Rusty's soft muzzle. "This cue." Horse snorted softly, a greeting he reserved only for her and for Arthur's memory. "You know, don't you, my old friend?" she whispered to the animal. "You know that some things never change, even when everything around seems different." It was then that the distant sound of an engine broke the serenity of the morning. Ellen frowned, raising her hand to shield her. Eyes from the sun, and better see the dirt road that wound through the trees. She wasn't expecting visitors, and the locals knew her habits well. Rarely did anyone show up without warning. The approaching car was different from the simple, practical vehicles common in the region. It was a black sedan, gleaming, obviously expensive and completely out of place on those dusty roads. Sarah joined her on the porch, both watching in silence as the vehicle stopped in front of the wooden gate. "Who could that be?" murmured Sarah, more to herself than expecting an answer. Ellen didn't respond immediately. Something in her chest tightened, a strange sensation, as if a shadow from the past was about to materialize. Rusty, on the other side of the fence, began to get agitated. His ears perked up, and he started pacing back and forth, restless. The car door opened, and a woman stepped out. Even from a distance, Ellen could recognize the elegant posture, the perfectly arranged blonde hair, and the confident walk of someone accustomed to sophisticated environments. When the figure turned toward the house, the world seemed to stop. "Jesus Christ," murmured Sarah, bringing her hand to her chest. It's Lauren." Ellen felt the blood freeze in her veins. 12 years, 12 long years since she had last seen her daughter, on that terrible morning when harsh words were exchanged like stabs, when pride and disappointment built a wall that seemed insurmountable. Lauren opened the gate with the same naturalness of someone who had never left, as if the years of silence were just a temporary misunderstanding. She wore a light-colored suit, evidently expensive, high-heeled shoes that dug into the earth with determination, and a smile that Ellen couldn't decipher. Was it genuine longing, or was there something more behind that carefully constructed expression? "Mom," said Lauren, stopping a few meters from the porch. Her voice carried a studied softness, as if she had rehearsed this moment many times. "I've come home. If this story interested you, don't forget to subscribe to our channel. And hit like. Tell us what city you're watching from. We'll continue." The silence that followed seemed to stretch for an eternity. Ellen remained motionless on the porch, her hands firmly gripping the wooden railing as she studied every detail of the daughter who had become a stranger. Lauren looked. Like she had stepped out of a fashion magazine, everything about her screamed success and sophistication, from the impeccable haircut to the perfect manicure that gleamed under the morning sun. 12 years, Ellen finally murmured, her voice laden with an emotion she herself couldn't fully define. 12 years, Lauren. I know, Mom, I know it's a long time. Lauren took a few steps toward the porch, but something in Ellen's posture made her stop. But I'm back. I missed this house, you, everything. You missed me? Ellen descended the porch steps with slow steps, each movement measured as if she were walking through a minefield. Interesting. 12 years of silence didn't seem to indicate longing. Sarah, sensing the tension in the air, murmured an excuse about checking something in the kitchen and disappeared into the house. But Ellen knew she would remain nearby, ready to intervene if necessary. The housekeeper knew the family's history all too well. "Mom, I know I made mistakes," Lauren continued, her voice gaining a more emotional tone. "I was young, impulsive. I said things I shouldn't have said, did things that destroyed." "There's family," Ellen completed, stopping a few meters from her daughter. Up close, she could see small wrinkles around Lauren's eyes, signs that life hadn't been just luxury and ease. "You didn't just leave, Lauren. You left taking part of your father's heart with you." Arthur's name hung between them like a ghostly presence. Lauren lowered her eyes for a moment, and when she raised them again, there were genuine tears there, or at least they seemed genuine. "How is he? Is Dad okay?" The question hit Ellen like a punch to the stomach. For a moment, she forgot all the grudges, all the years of silence, and saw only the daughter she had once loved unconditionally, asking about her father with genuine concern. "Your father passed away 2 years ago, Lauren." The words came out softer than she had intended. "A heart problem. It was quick, without suffering." Lauren staggered as if she had taken a physical blow. Her hand flew to her mouth, stifling a groan of pain that seemed to come from the depths of her soul. 2 years? He's been gone for 2 years, and I didn't even know. Tears began to stream down her carefully made-up face. "Why didn't anyone tell me? Why didn't you—" "Tell who?" Ellen's voice hardened again. "You disappeared from our lives as if you'd never existed. You didn't leave an address, didn't leave a phone number. How could I have found you?" Rusty, who had remained agitated since Lauren's arrival, approached the fence and emitted a low, prolonged neigh. The sound made both women turn to him, and Ellen couldn't help but notice how the horse was watching Lauren with an almost human intensity. "Rusty's still here," said Lauren, trying to regain her composure and changing the subject. She extended her hand toward the animal. "I remember how Dad loved him." But the horse backed away, shaking his head and keeping his distance. Ellen frowned. Rusty had always been friendly with visitors, especially with people who showed affection. "He's acting strange," she commented, more to herself than to Lauren. "He's usually very sociable." "Animals sense things we don't," said Lauren, withdrawing her hand. There was something in her voice that sounded forced, as if she were trying to appear unconcerned. "Maybe he's sensing my sadness about the news of Dad." Sarah reappeared on the porch, carrying a tray with coffee and homemade cookies. "Sorry to interrupt, but I thought you might want—" "Thank you, Sarah," said Ellen, grateful for the interruption. The housekeeper's presence brought a sense of normalcy to that surreal moment. "Lauren, would you like some coffee? It's still the way you liked it as a child." "Yes, please." Lauren followed the 2 older women to the porch, but before climbing the steps, she cast one last glance at Rusty. The horse continued to watch her, his ears alert and body tense. Seated at the porch table, the 3 women formed a strange triangle. Sarah served the coffee with her usual efficiency, but her eyes cast curious glances at Lauren. Ellen drank her coffee in silence, still processing her daughter's unexpected return. And Lauren seemed to be studying every detail of the house, as if cataloguing changes, measuring distances, evaluating possibilities. "The house is exactly as I remembered," she finally commented. "Even the smell is the same, fresh coffee, waxed wood, and that sweet aroma of flowers from the yard." "Some things never change," Ellen replied, but there was an unspoken question in her voice. "And others change completely, don't they, Lauren?" "Mom," Lauren placed her cup on the table and leaned forward, assuming a posture that tried to convey sincerity. "I'd like to stay for a few days if you'll allow it. I need to process the news about... Dad, I need to be near you, this house. I need to reconnect with my roots." Ellen studied her daughter's face for a long moment. There was something there she couldn't identify, a poorly disguised anxiety, a haste that contrasted with the soft words about reconnection and longing. "You can stay," she finally said. "Your room is still as you left it." Lauren smiled, but Ellen noticed that the smile didn't quite reach her eyes. And outside, Rusty continued to watch, as if he knew something that the humans had not yet discovered. 3 days had passed since Lauren's return, and the ranch routine had taken on a strange dynamic. During the day, mother and daughter seemed like two careful dancers, circling around each other, measuring each word, each gesture. Lauren showed herself to be solicitous, offering help with household chores, complimenting Sarah's cooking, and asking questions about the property with an interest that seemed genuine but left Ellen uneasy. "Mum, would you like me to organize Dad's papers in his office?" Lauren asked during breakfast. "I know it must be difficult for you to go through his things." Ellen stopped with the cup halfway to her lips. Arthur's office had remained untouched since his departure, a silent sanctuary where she sometimes sat to feel his presence. Lauren's suggestion, although apparently kind, sounded like an invasion. "That's not necessary, dear. I've already taken care of what needed to be taken care of." The response was firm, leaving no room for discussion. Of course. I just thought that..." Lauren smiled, but Ellen noticed a tinge of frustration in her eyes. "Maybe I can help with other things then. Does the north pasture fence need repairs?" "Sarah and I can handle everything that's necessary," Ellen replied, carefully watching her daughter's reaction. It was at that moment that the sound of another vehicle arriving broke the growing tension. This time, it was a simpler car, a white sedan that stopped at the gate with the naturalness of someone who knew the place. A man got out, tall, around 50, well-groomed grey hair, and a posture that combined education with an almost professional confidence. Who could that be? "Now," murmured Sarah, stepping onto the porch. The man approached with a cordial smile, taking a small card from his pocket. "Good morning. I apologize for showing up without warning. My name is Charles Anderson. I'm a researcher in genealogy and family history." Genealogy. Ellen descended the steps, maintaining a respectful but cautious distance. "Yes, ma'am. I'm conducting research on traditional families in the Pine Ridge region, and the Davis name appeared in some very interesting historical documents. I believe I may have a distant family connection with you." Lauren, who had remained silent, suddenly showed great interest. "What kind of connection?" Charles turned to her with an even wider smile. "Well, through Arthur Davis's maternal side, there are indications that—" "You knew my husband," interrupted Ellen, her voice taking on a coldness that made Sarah instinctively move closer. "Not personally, no, but his name appears in old police records, in documents that were transferred to the municipal archives. He was a highly respected man in the region." Rusty, who had been grazing peacefully in the field, abruptly raised his head. The horse began to get agitated, exactly as he had done when Lauren arrived. His ears turned forward, and he began to walk in circles, clearly uncomfortable. "How curious," commented Charles, following Ellen's gaze toward the animal. "What a magnificent horse. He seems very intelligent." "Rusty has always been special," Lauren said quickly. "Dad used to say he had a sixth sense for people." Ellen gave her daughter a penetrating look. It was strange how Lauren was being so communicative with a complete stranger, especially considering how reserved she had been in the past few days. "Mr. Anderson," said Ellen, resuming the conversation, "I appreciate your interest in our family history, but we don't usually receive researchers without prior scheduling." Of course, I understand perfectly." Charles maintained his smile, but his eyes made a quick survey of the property. "Perhaps I could come back another day with an appointment. I'm sure you would be fascinated by what I've discovered about the Davis family." "I would be," said Lauren before Ellen could respond. "I've always been curious about the family history." "Excellent." Charles took a card from his pocket and extended it to Lauren. "Here's my contact information. I'll be in the region for a few more days, staying at the inn in town." Ellen observed the exchange with growing discomfort. There was something in the ease with which Lauren and Charles communicated that didn't seem natural for two people who had just met. "Well, I've taken up enough of your time," said Charles, putting away the remaining cards. "I hope we can talk soon." He headed to his car, but before getting in, he cast one last look at the house. Not a nostalgic or admiring look, but an evaluative one, as if measuring distances and calculating possibilities. As soon as the car disappeared down the road, Sarah broke the silence. What a strange man. Showed up out of nowhere talking about genealogy. "I found it interesting," said Lauren, still holding the card. "It could be an opportunity to discover things about our history that we never imagined." "Our history is well documented," Ellen replied dryly. "We don't need strangers telling us who we are." Lauren put the card in her pocket with a gesture that tried to appear casual, but Ellen noticed how her fingers closed firmly around it, as if it was something valuable. That night, when the house was quiet and everyone was supposedly asleep, Ellen heard soft footsteps in the hallway. Peering through the crack in her door, she saw Lauren walking toward Arthur's office, a small flashlight in hand. Her daughter paused in front of the closed door for a long moment, as if deciding whether or not to enter. Finally, she tested the doorknob, which was locked, and returned to her room with even quieter steps. Ellen stayed awake until dawn, a disturbing certainty growing in her chest. Something very important was about to happen, and she needed to find out what it was before it was too late. The next morning brought a fine drizzle that transformed the mountainous landscape into an impressionist painting. Ellen was on the porch watching Rusty, who continued to demonstrate strange behavior. He kept himself always close to the house, as if standing guard. Lauren had gone out early, claiming she wanted to walk the property trails to remember old times, but Sarah had discreetly commented that she saw her talking on the phone near the gate. The sound of a familiar engine made Ellen smile for the first time in days. It was Lieutenant Barrett's blue pickup, Arthur's former colleague on the police force, and one of the few true friends remaining from those times. John Barrett had retired 5 years ago, but maintained the military bearing and the always alert posture of someone who had spent decades dealing with the darker aspects of human nature. "Ellen," he called, getting out of the pickup with impressive agility for his 62 years. "How are you, my dear?" "Better now that you're here, John." Ellen descended the steps to hug him. "I missed you last week." "Had to resolve some matters in the city, but I didn't forget our weekly conversation." Barrett hugged her warmly, but his experienced gaze was already examining the surroundings. "I noticed a different car here yesterday. Visitors?" "2 visitors, actually, both unexpected." Ellen gestured for him to sit on the porch. "Lauren's back." Barrett stopped sitting, half crouched in the chair. "Lauren? Your daughter, Lauren?" "The same. Showed up 4 days ago, as if 12 years of absence were just an extended weekend. And the other visitor, a certain Charles Anderson, claims to be a genealogy researcher interested in the family history." Ellen served coffee for both of them, observing how Barrett frowned. "Do you know that name?" "Anderson Barrett," repeated thoughtfully, his fingers drumming on the table. "Not immediately, but something bothers me. I can make some discreet inquiries if you'd like." "I would, yes, there's something about him that doesn't inspire confidence." Sarah appeared at the door, nodding timidly to Barrett. "Lieutenant, good to see you again. Will you be staying for lunch?" Certainly, Sarah, nobody makes chicken and okra like you. When they were alone again, Barrett leaned forward, lowering his voice. Ellen, I need to tell you something. It's about Oscar Matthews. Mummy. Name hit Ellen like lightning. Oscar Matthews had been a constant shadow in the last years of Arthur's career, a powerful, influential man with questionable businesses that they never managed to legally prove. Arthur had dedicated years trying to build a solid case against him, without success. What about him? He's back in the region. Arrived a week ago, bought a property in the valley. He's calling himself an agribusiness entrepreneur, but... Barrett paused, carefully choosing his words. Arthur was right about him, Ellen. He always was. And I have reason to believe that he hasn't forgotten your husband's investigations. Do you think he might try something? I don't know. But it's too much of a coincidence. Oscar returns. Your daughter appears after 12 years, and a supposed researcher starts asking questions about the family. Arthur always said that too many coincidences cease to be coincidences. At that moment, Lauren appeared on the trail leading from the woods, walking hurriedly toward the house. Her hair was disheveled and there was a dirt stain on her expensive coat. When she saw Barrett, she hesitated for a moment before approaching. Lieutenant Barrett, she said, forcing a smile. What a nice surprise. Lauren. Barrett stood up, but his greeting was formal, cold. I heard you're back. Yes, I finally found time to visit, Mom. I really missed this house. Lauren sat down without being invited, but Ellen noticed how her hands trembled slightly. Are you still taking good care of the region? Always vigilant, even in retirement. Barrett studied her with the intensity of an interrogation. It's interesting how some people choose specific moments for their visits. What do you mean? Nothing, just an observation. Barrett sipped his coffee slowly. Ellen, do you remember those papers Arthur kept in his office, the documents about unsolved cases? Ellen felt her blood freeze. Yes, she knew exactly what he was talking about. I remember. It would be good to take a look at them. Sometimes old information takes on new relevance. Lauren shifted uneasily in her chair. What kind of documents? Police work, Barrett replied, without taking his eyes off her. Things that interest only people with specific motives. The silence that followed was broken by Rusty, who approached the porch and snorted loudly, looking directly at Lauren. The horse seemed increasingly agitated, walking back and forth. How strange, commented Barrett. Rusty has always been calm. Arthur used to say he only got like this when he sensed danger. Danger? Lauren laughed, but the sound seemed forced. He's just a horse, Lieutenant. Arthur didn't think so. Barrett stood up. Ellen, I need to go, but I promise I'll make those inquiries we discussed, and he looked significantly at her. It would be good indeed to take a look at those old papers. After Barrett left, Lauren remained silent for a long time. Finally, she got up abruptly. I think I'll rest a bit. The walk tired me out more than I expected. Ellen watched her enter the house, noticing how Lauren cast furtive glances toward the hallway that led to Arthur's office. That night, she would make a decision she had postponed for too long. It was time to open her husband's office and discover what secrets it still held. If this story interested you, don't forget to subscribe to our channel and hit like. Tell first what city you're watching from. We'll continue. The dawn was cold and silent when Ellen finally decided to enter Arthur's office. She had spent hours lying in bed, listening to the night sounds of the house, making sure Lauren was truly asleep. At 3 in the morning, armed only with a small flashlight and the weight of 2 decades of marriage, she turned the key in the lock that had remained untouched for so long. The office's aroma hit her like a wave of memories. Old leather, from the books, the masculine cologne Arthur used, and that indefinable smell of old papers and well-kept secrets. The desk was exactly as he had left it, a pen still on a notepad, reading glasses carefully folded, and a photo of the two of them on their honeymoon, smiling under the sun in the mountains. Ellen started with the desk, opening drawers with the care of someone who didn't want to disturb ghosts. She found the usual documents, ranch accounts, correspondence about local business, some old photos of the region. But it was when she opened the last drawer, the deepest one, that her fingers touched something unexpected. A sealed envelope with her name written in Arthur's unmistakable handwriting. With trembling hands, she broke the seal. The letter was dated just 3 months before Arthur's passing. My dear Ellen, if you're reading this, it means something has reactivated the ghosts of the past. I hope I'm wrong, but my experience tells me that men like Oscar Matthews never forget, never forgive. There are things I kept from you to protect you, but now you need to know the truth. In the book chest, behind the volumes of American history, you'll find a golden key. This key opens what I built for our future, and if necessary, our protection. Trust only Barrett. Be wary of everyone else, even those who should be closest. To our hearts, love sometimes blinds us to realities we prefer not to see. Take care, my love. And if something happens, remember, Rusty knows this house better than any of us. Your eternal husband, Arthur. Ellen's heart was beating so hard she could hear it in the silence of the office. With faltering steps, she headed to the book chest that occupied an entire wall. Behind the volumes on American history, exactly where Arthur had indicated, her fingers found a small golden key with 2 letters engraved. B.S. Big Safe. She vaguely remembered Arthur mentioning something about a special compartment, but had never given it importance. She looked around the office with new eyes, searching for something that might hide a safe. It was then that she noticed. The bookshelf on the right side seemed slightly misaligned with the wall. Approaching, she discovered that the central section could be moved, revealing a safe built into the wall, a solid, discreet construction that must have taken weeks to install without her noticing. The key turned smoothly. Inside the safe, she found an impressive collection of documents, photographs, and carefully organized dossiers. There were folders with names she recognized, local politicians, businessmen, from the region, people who frequented their house for social dinners. But it was the most voluminous folder that caught her attention. Oscar Matthews, Suspicious Activities, 1998-2010. Inside the folder, she found something that made her world crumble. Letters. Letters written in a handwriting she knew well, but hadn't seen in more than 20 years. The signature at the end confirmed her worst fears. Lisa. Her sister. Lisa, who had mysteriously disappeared when Lauren was only 5 years old, leaving only a vague letter about starting a new life. Arthur had searched for her for years, without success. But there were the proofs that Lisa hadn't simply disappeared. She had become involved with Oscar Matthews. The letters spoke of secret meetings, a forbidden passion, and something that made Ellen have to sit in Arthur's chair to avoid fainting. A daughter. Oscar, our daughter is growing up so beautiful. She has your eyes, your determination. Sometimes, I'm afraid Ellen will discover the truth, but you promised me that would never happen. Lauren can't know who her real father is, at least not while you're involved in these dangerous businesses. The letter fell from Ellen's trembling hands. Lauren, her daughter, whom she had raised as her own since Lisa disappeared, was not Arthur's daughter. She was Oscar Matthews' daughter, the man her husband had spent years trying to put behind bars. She continued reading, discovering a web of lies and secrets that had sustained her life for decades. Arthur knew the truth from the beginning, but had chosen to raise Lauren as his own daughter, protecting her from the truth about her real father. Lisa had agreed to disappear to protect her daughter and keep Oscar away from the family. But there was more. Lisa's last letter, dated just 2 years ago, brought a desperate warning. Ellen, yes, I know you'll read this someday. Oscar has found out where I am. He learned about Lauren, about the whole truth. I don't know how much time I have, but you need to know our girl is in danger. He will try to use her to get to the documents Arthur kept on him. Lauren knows nothing, but he is capable of manipulating her, of making her believe any story that serves his purposes. Protect her, even if she doesn't deserve it, and protect yourself. Your sister who never stopped loving you all, Lisa. Ellen remained motionless for long minutes, absorbing the magnitude of the revelations. Lauren hadn't returned out of longing or remorse. She had been sent by Oscar, probably without even knowing he was her real father, to find the documents that could destroy him. From outside, Rusty neighed softly, a warning sound she had learned to recognize. Ellen turned off the flashlight and carefully approached the window. Two figures were talking near the gate, illuminated only by the moon, Lauren and Charles Anderson. The final piece of the puzzle fell into place. Charles wasn't a genealogist. He was Oscar's accomplice, sent to ensure Lauren found what they were looking for. Ellen quickly put away the most important documents and closed the safe, but kept the key with her. For the first time in days, she knew exactly what she needed to do. At dawn, she would call Barrett. It was time to end this dangerous game, even if it meant losing Lauren forever. Dawn brought heavy clouds that accumulated over the mountains like a silent threat. Ellen hadn't slept a minute since her discovery in the office, but she was more alert than ever. She prepared coffee with steady hands, planning each movement of the next few minutes. At 6 in the morning, she dialed Barrett's number. "John, I need you to come here, now." Her voice was low but urgent. "I found what Arthur wanted me to find. I'm on my way." The response came without questions. Barrett knew that tone. Lauren came down for breakfast with a studiedly casual air, but Ellen noticed the dark circles under her eyes and the tension in her daughter's shoulders. Sarah served fresh bread and homemade jam, maintaining her morning routine as if nothing had changed, though her attentive eyes caught every nuance of the heavy atmosphere. "Sleep well, Mom?" asked Lauren, sitting at the table. "As always," lied Ellen, observing every micro-expression on her daughter's face. "And you?" "I heard some noises during the night." Lauren hesitated for a fraction of a second. "Must have been the wind. This old house makes so many sounds." "Yes, I know. I've lived here for 25 years. Ellen sipped her coffee slowly. "Lauren, I need to ask you a question, and I'd like an honest answer." "Of course, Mom. Did you know Charles Anderson before he showed up here?" The silence that followed was eloquent. Lauren put her cup on the table with excessive care, her fingers playing nervously with the handle. "Why do you ask that?" "Because I saw you talking last night near the gate. It didn't seem like a conversation between strangers." Lauren sighed deeply, as if she had made a decision. "All right. Yes, I knew him. He approached me in the city a few weeks ago, said he was researching our family, and that it would be interesting if I could facilitate access to the old documents." "And you accepted?" "Mom, I needed money. My life in the city hasn't been easy. Charles offered me a generous amount just to broker the contact." It was a partial confession, Ellen realized, true enough to sound convincing, but omitting the most compromising details. What kind of documents is he specifically looking for? Old records, certificates, maybe some papers from when Dad was a police officer. Lauren avoided direct eye contact. Things for his genealogical research. At that moment, Barrett's pickup stopped in the yard. Ellen stood up. "We have company." Barrett entered the house with his usual energy, but his experienced eyes immediately caught the tension in the environment. "Good morning, ladies. Ellen, you said you found something important?" "Yes, Lauren, could you excuse us? I need to talk to the lieutenant about official matters." Lauren hesitated, clearly reluctant to leave them alone. "Can't I stay? If it's about Dad?" "No." Ellen's response was firm. "It's better that you go for a walk or maybe visit town. Sarah can accompany you if you'd like." After Lauren left, visibly displeased, Ellen led Barrett to Arthur's office and showed him everything. The letter, the safe, the documents about Oscar, and Lisa's devastating letters. Barrett read everything in silence, his face hardening with each revelation. "My God, Ellen, Arthur was protecting you from a ticking time bomb. And now the bomb is about to explode," she murmured. "John, Lauren doesn't know Oscar is her biological father, does she?" "From what we see here, no. He's manipulating her without her knowing about the family connection." Barrett carefully organized the papers. "This actually makes her more dangerous, because she may be acting without fully understanding the consequences." "What do we do?" First, let's protect these documents. Second, I need to make some urgent inquiries about this Charles Anderson. And third, he paused, we need to set a trap. Trap? If Oscar wants these documents so desperately, let's make him come personally to get them, but on our terms. As they talked, the weather outside rapidly worsened. What had started as heavy clouds was now turning into a real storm, with strong winds that made the windows shake and the first heavy drops of rain hitting the roof. Rusty appeared at the office window, agitated and clearly uncomfortable with the approaching storm, or perhaps with something else. The horse neighed loudly, a warning sound that made them both turn to the window. "He's trying to warn us of something," said Ellen. It was then that they saw it, 2 cars approaching, on the road, driving faster than would be prudent in those weather conditions. The first was Charles's white sedan. The second was a dark car they didn't recognize, but which radiated an aura of authority and danger. "Ellen, where are Arthur's guns?" "In the living room cabinet behind the law books." "Go get them, now." Barrett was already taking his own revolver from its holster. "And call Sarah, you two stay upstairs until I resolve this." But before they could move, the front door opened. Lauren entered hurriedly, soaked by the rain that had begun to fall hard. "Mom, Lieutenant," she shouted, her words carrying an urgency that seemed genuine. "There are armed men coming up the road. I managed to hide behind the trees when I saw them, but they're almost here." Barrett and Ellen exchanged a look. Was this Lauren's theater, or was she really trying to protect them? The sound of cars stopping in the yard gave no time for further speculation. "Everyone upstairs now," ordered Barrett. But it was too late. The front door opened violently, and Charles Anderson entered, no longer with the educated smile of the researcher, but with the hard posture of someone who was accustomed to getting what he wanted. Behind him, 2 men in dark suits with merciless expressions. "Good afternoon," said Charles, his voice echoing in the silent house. "I believe we have some pending matters to resolve." Outside, the storm broke with full fury over Pine Ridge Valley, as if nature itself was announcing that the moment of truth had finally arrived. The ranch living room had never witnessed such palpable tension. Charles remained standing in the center, flanked by the 2 men in suits, while the rain violently beat against the windows and lightning illuminated the scene like sinister flashes of a photograph. Barrett kept his hand near his weapon, but knew he was outnumbered. Ellen positioned herself protectively near Sarah, who had come down upon hearing the raised voices. "Where is he?" asked Charles, dispensing with any pretense of cordiality. "Where is Oscar?" "I don't know what you're talking about," Ellen replied, though her heart was racing. Charles laughed, a humorless sound. "Mrs. Davis, let's stop this charade. We know. You've discovered the truth. Lauren has already told us about the documents in the office." All eyes turned to Lauren, who was still soaked near the door. For a moment she looked like a lost child, with tears mixed with rainwater streaming down her face. I had no choice," she whispered. "They said they knew about my true identity, that if I didn't cooperate—" "What true identity?" Ellen's voice cut through the air like a blade. It was Charles who answered with a cruel smile. "She doesn't know, does she? Even after all these years, you never told her." "Told me what?" Lauren looked from one person to another, confusion and desperation evident in her voice. "That you're not Arthur Davis's daughter," Charles said slowly, savoring each word. "That your real mother wasn't Ellen, but Lisa, her sister, and that your biological father—" "Enough!" shouted Ellen, but Charles continued relentlessly. "Your biological father is Oscar Matthews. Yes, Lauren, the man you've been helping is your own father, although he never told you that either." Lauren staggered as if she had taken a punch. This can't be true. My mother is... My mother." "Your biological mother disappeared when you were 5 years old," Charles continued cruelly. "Or rather was eliminated when she became a problem for Oscar. Ellen and Arthur raised you as their daughter, but were never brave enough to tell you the truth." "You're lying!" Lauren screamed, but her legs failed, and she leaned against the wall for support. Barrett stepped forward. "Charles, or whatever your real name is, you're under arrest for home invasion and threats." With what authority, ex-lieutenant? You're retired, remember? Charles gestured and his men positioned themselves. Better. Besides, we came only to retrieve property that belongs to us. The documents never belonged to Oscar, said Ellen, finding her voice. They're evidence of his criminal activities. Evidence that could destroy many important people. That's why they're so valuable. Charles approached her. Where are they? Was then that a new voice echoed in the room, coming from the back door. They're with me. Everyone turned. A tall man with grey hair and imposing bearing was standing at the entrance, holding a folder of documents. Even after all these years, Ellen recognized him immediately. Oscar Matthews. Lauren gasped. You are my father, Oscar completed, walking to the center of the room with the confidence of someone accustomed to dominating situations. Yes, Lauren, I am your biological father, and I'm sorry you had to find out this way. Why did you never tell me? To protect you. From my world, from my enemies. Oscar looked significantly at Ellen and Barrett. But now that Arthur is gone, there's no need to keep secrets anymore. You killed Lisa, accused Ellen, her voice trembling with anger. You killed my sister when she wanted to get away from you. Lisa made dangerous choices. She threatened to expose information that could harm many people. Oscar showed no remorse. Sometimes, sacrifices are necessary for the greater good. Barrett had heard enough. Oscar Matthews, you're under arrest for the murder of Lisa Mitchell and for... The movement was too fast. One of Oscar's men drew his weapon, but before he could aim, something unexpected happened. Rusty, who had been restless outside during the entire storm, broke through the back door with a powerful kick and invaded the room, neighing and rearing. Lissa's horse immediately positioned himself between Ellen and the armed men, as if he understood exactly what was happening. His imposing and unexpected presence caused enough confusion for Barrett to draw his weapon. "Nobody move," shouted the ex-lieutenant. But Oscar laughed. "You won't shoot, Barrett, not with your adopted granddaughter here." It was then that Lauren, who had remained leaning against the wall, processing all the revelations, made a decision. With tears streaming down her face, she turned to Oscar. "You killed my real mother. You made me grow up an orphan, lying to me, using me." Her voice grew in volume and fury. "And you still had the audacity to manipulate me into coming back here and bringing pain to the only people who truly loved me. Lauren, you don't understand the complexities." "I understand perfectly," she shouted. "I understand that I'm the daughter of a murderer. I understand that you destroyed 2 families, and I understand that you spent your entire life lying to everyone." In a desperate movement, Lauren threw herself at the folder of documents Oscar was holding, trying to snatch it from his hands. In the confusion that followed, one of the armed men stumbled, trying to avoid Rusty, who continued to defend his human family with protective fury. "Everyone stop!" Ellen's voice cut through the chaos. She was standing in the middle of the room, holding a pistol that had belonged to Arthur. "Oscar, you're going to leave my house now and never come near my daughter again." "Your daughter?" Oscar smiled coldly. "Biologically, she's mine." "Biology doesn't make a family," Ellen replied firmly. "Love does, and I loved Lauren from the first day, would raise her 1,000 times if necessary, because she is my daughter, regardless of who conceived her." Lauren sobbed, running to embrace Ellen. "Mum, forgive me for everything." "There's nothing to forgive, my daughter. Nothing." Outside, police sirens cut through the air. Barrett had managed to activate the silent alarm during the confusion. 3 months later, the Pine Ridge Valley Ranch breathed a peace it hadn't known for a long time. The storm that had marked that fateful night in July had been followed by an especially beautiful spring, with flowers blooming throughout the property as if the earth itself was celebrating the end of the secrets and lies that had haunted that family for so long. Ellen was on the porch watching Lauren and Sarah work together in the garden. In the past few months, her daughter had completely transformed. The expensive suits had given way to simple, practical clothes, the perfectly arranged hair now swung loose in the wind, and the artificial smile had been replaced by genuine expressions, even when stained with garden soil. "Mom, did you see how the sunflowers are growing? Lauren ran to the porch, her hands dirty with soil and her eyes shining with a joy Ellen hadn't seen since her childhood. Sarah said Dad planted these seeds before he left. Yes, dear, he always loved sunflowers. He said they were like you. They always sought the light, no matter which direction it came from. Lauren sat on the porch steps, resting her head on her mother's knee as she used to do when she was little. Sometimes I still can't believe everything that happened. It seems like a nightmare I finally woke up from. Oscar's trial had been quick and definitive. With the documents Arthur had kept for years, added to Lauren's testimony about the manipulation attempts, the prosecutor had secured not only a conviction for Lisa's murder, but also for a series of other crimes including corruption, fraud, and criminal organization. Charles, whose real name was Robert Smith, had cooperated with the authorities in exchange for a reduced sentence, providing valuable information about the corruption network Oscar had built over the years. "You know," said Lauren, breaking, "the contemplative silence. During all those years in the city, I felt like something was missing in my life. Now I realize it wasn't success or money. It was this feeling of belonging somewhere, of having true roots." "And now you know that your roots were always here?" Ellen replied, stroking her daughter's hair. "It doesn't matter who conceived you, Lauren. What matters is who raised you with love, who was present in the important moments, who taught you values and gave you a home." Rusty approached the porch, calmer than he had been in months. The horse seemed to have a sixth sense for the family's emotions. During the tense weeks after the confrontation, he had remained vigilant, but now grazed peacefully and even allowed Lauren to pet him, something he had refused to do during her first week back. "He forgave you," observed Ellen, smiling as she watched Lauren feed Rusty carrots. "I think he understood that I was as lost as he was when Dad passed away. Sometimes we need to lose our way to discover where we truly belong." Barrett arrived for his weekly visit, bringing news from the outside world. The case had generated media coverage, but they had managed to keep the family's privacy protected, focusing attention on Oscar's criminal activities rather than the personal details of Lauren's story. "How are my favorite ladies?" he asked, climbing the porch steps with his usual energy. "Better every day," Ellen replied, serving fresh coffee. "And what's new?" "In town. Oscar was transferred to a maximum security penitentiary. He won't be out anytime soon." Barrett sat down, accepting the steaming cup. "And Robert Smith is cooperating so well that we've already identified other properties illegally purchased in the region. Some families will recover lands they unjustly lost." "And what about Oscar's companies?" "Being investigated and gradually dismantled. The recovered money will be used to compensate the victims of his schemes." Barrett looked at Lauren. "That includes you if you want. As his daughter, technically, you have a right to an inheritance." Lauren vigorously shook her head. "I don't want anything that comes from him. I prefer to build my life with my own hands here, alongside my real family." She had made this decision weeks ago when a lawyer had appeared to discuss the inheritance issue. Instead, Lauren had suggested that all the money be directed to a fund that would help other families who had been harmed by Oscar over the years. "By the way," continued Barrett, "I received an interesting proposal today. The mayor's office is looking for someone to coordinate a rural tourism program in the region. I thought Lauren might be interested." Lauren's eyes lit up. During the past few months, she had discovered a natural talent for dealing with people and a passion for local history and culture that she had genuinely inherited from Arthur. Would it be right here in the region, based here in Pine Ridge, but covering various historic ranches in the surrounding areas? You would be helping to preserve and share stories like yours. The good parts, of course. Ellen smiled, seeing the enthusiasm grow on her daughter's face. "I think it would be perfect for you." That night, after Barrett left and Sarah retired to her quarters, mother and daughter remained on the porch under a starry sky that was rarely seen so clearly. The light pollution from the big city was far away, and the Milky Way stretched above them like a cosmic mantle. "Mom," said Lauren softly, "thank you for never giving up on me. Even when I was lost, even when I was cruel, even when I chose the wrong path for so long. True love doesn't give up, dear. Your father taught me that. Even in the most difficult moments of our marriage, even when you left 12 years ago, I never stopped loving you both. Love isn't a feeling that turns on and off. It's a choice we make every day. And I choose to stay here with you, building a life that honors Dad's memory and my biological mother's memory too. Lisa may have made mistakes, but she gave me life, and Arthur and you gave me a home. Rusty neighed softly from the pasture, as if agreeing with the words he heard. The horse had become more than a pet. He was the silent guardian of the property, the last physical link with Arthur, and a constant reminder that true loyalty and love don't need words to be expressed. When they finally went inside to sleep, Ellen stopped in Arthur's office, which now remained open and was used as the family library. On the desk, beside the photo of the two of them on their honeymoon, there was a new photograph. Ellen, Lauren, and Sarah smiling in the garden with Rusty in the background. It was an image of a complete family, united not by blood or obligation, but by the conscious choice to be present in each other's lives. Outside, under the silvery moonlight of the Pine Ridge Valley Mountains, the ranch slept in peace, protected by the love that had triumphed over all the secrets, lies, and betrayals of the past.